We'll give Denise a minute. Go ahead. All right, good evening. I hereby call the meeting of February 16th, 2017 of the City Board of Adjustment to order. Could we get a roll call, please?
Go on my roll call here. Board Member Spencer.
Present.
Board Member Brady, absent. Board Member Jenna.
Present.
Board Member McClintock.
Present.
Board Member Primo.
Present.
Board Member Reimer.
Present.
And Board Member Rychecki, absent.
All right, looks like we have a quorum. Guess next item of business is the approval agenda. The agenda's been posted. Do we have any comments or concerns or discussion on that, or do we have a motion? This is for January 19th minutes.
I move to approve based on the recording secretary certification the January 19th, 2017 video as the minutes for the January 19th, 2017 regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Pull the board, please. Good. All right.
Board Member Jenna, are you voting for the minutes?
Was it?
Are you voting to approve the minutes for?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Use the voting board switch,
Yeah.
please.
We lost one. All right.
All right.
Good.
Motion carries. Thank you.
This high-tech stuff, I don't know.
All right, moving on, public comment. I didn't see anything signed up top. Have anybody here to speak? Nothing? Okay. Moving on then, I don't believe we have any general business, so our first item is the public hearing for VAR 17-0001, variance to the maximum monopole height in the I-2 zone district at 4929 South Windermere Street. Staff, please.
Hi, I'm Pam Hall, and I'm the planner for City Littleton. So before you tonight is case number VAR 17-0001, which is Excel monopole, variance to the maximum height in the I-2 zone district at 4929 South Windermere Street in Littleton. The applicant is Public Service Company of Colorado. They're proposing to construct a new field area network project that consists of 3 new wireless communication antennas on a 120-foot tall monopole with 5-foot tall lightning rod, so a total of 125 feet. Although the I-2 zone district has no maximum height for structures, Title 10.411B5 has a maximum height to a single user on a monopole of 60 feet with no multi-tenant structures. So if they had multi-tenant, it could not exceed 100 feet. The monopole also needs to meet the minimum building setbacks for the zone district. In the I-2 zone district, it requires a minimum of 25 feet when they're adjacent to a non-industrial zone district. Public Service Company can meet the minimum setback requirement, and they are requesting relief to the maximum height for a shorter pole would compromise their effectiveness of their new fan project. So in order for the board to grant authority to variances where due to exceptional and extraordinary circumstances exist, the literal enforcement of the provisions of this title would result in an unnecessary hardship. So no variance can be approved unless all of the 5 criteria unless the board finds approval to all the criteria. So criteria number 1 is that the variance will not authorize the operation of a use other than those uses specifically listed as primary permitted uses for the zone district in which the affected property is located. So if you look in our land use code, it identifies antenna support structures. They are a use by right in the I2 zone district. So this criterion is met. Criterion number 2 is that the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or zone district in which the property is located, or substantially or permanently impair the allowed use or development of adjacent property. As the applicant stated in their analysis, the project is consistent with the neighborhood. The variance would not alter the essential character of adjacent properties to the northwest or south and is buffered to the east. The east is where there is a park. Additionally, the variance will not impair the use of adjacent properties. So this criterion also appears to be met. Criterion number 3, that the variance is the minimum that will afford relief and is the least possible modification to the provision in question. So allowing additional height appears to be the minimum modification to provide additional coverage as outlined in the applicant's feasibility study of the requirement of this height. So this requirement also appears to be met. Criterion number 4, that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare. As the applicant states, this project is needed to support public service companies' new intelligent integrated grid that will provide customers with faster, more efficient service, shorter, better managed outages. This improves the public health, safety, and welfare. So this criterion also appears to have been met. And then the 5th criterion is that the hardship, if any, under which the variance is sought was not created by the owner, applicant, or agent of the owner, the property in question, nor was it suffered as a result of the code of any provision of this code. Existing development, the trees, vegetation, and surrounding topography cause interference with this project's communication coverage. This interference was not created by the owner of the property in question, and it creates exceptional and extraordinary circumstances that require the 120-foot tall project height. Not allowing the proposed height would result in a hardship to the viability of this project, and the hardship was not suffered as a result of a violation. So this criterion, too, appears to have been met. So for the reasons stated above, city staff concludes that this application for the variance to the maximum height of monopoles meets all the conditions for approval as provided in section 1011(1)(b). Staff recommends approval of the variance. Does the board have any questions for staff?
So it appears to me where the variance is strictly a height-associated variance.
Correct.
And I didn't see in here, in our package, or any correspondence from surrounding businesses, or?
We received no correspondence for or against this project.
Okay.
No phone calls, no letters, no, nothing.
Okay.
Okay, with regard to the this variance not adversely affecting public health and safety and their welfare, I understand the justification is really the object of the whole variance and then putting up the monopole. There was good engineering data in the packages that you sent out with regard to the wind loading of the antenna itself. However, I didn't see anything with regard to the wind loading issue that I would see with regard to an antenna on top of a 120-foot monopole. And, generally that monopole would just kind of like be a pencil in the wind, but you throw the wings on it now, and, that's going to cause some wind load, and I didn't see any evaluation of that, because it's the possibility of that monopole having a failure or being overloaded by the wind.
And I passed that question on to the applicant yesterday, and she is prepared to address that as part of her presentation.
Great. Now, the second thing, too, is that, should that monopole decide to keel over because of the wind or whatever, there's a fall zone area that I'm concerned about being 125 feet long, primarily going to the east over the road, and then primarily going west towards the substation. And I don't know if that radius, that fall radius, is going to be impacted on either side, and what we might be concerned about.
Well, unfortunately, in our code, it doesn't require a fall radius for monopoles. So and perhaps she can address that question as well as part of her presentation.
Great. And I'll wait for their answer.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hall.
Then I will call Susan Ennis up.
Hi, good evening. I'm Susan Ennis. I'm manager of siting and land rights for Public Service Company of Colorado. No better where to pull open the. There we go. Pam did a great job outlining how we meet the criteria for a variance approval. I wanted to give a little bit more background about the field area network. This is going to be a wireless communication system that we're installing across our entire service territory here, and will really add a little more flexibility to how we manage outages and monitor conditions across our electric and natural gas distribution systems. The benefits for consumers in the area, for our customers, we'll be able to isolate faults on the system, potentially reroute power, and that'll mean for our customers that we'll have reduced outage durations. So if the power does go out, it should be for a shorter time. It'll also allow us to proactively prevent power loss. And of course, renewable energy has been very popular in Colorado, and these technologies we'll be adding that are enabled by our field area network will help integrate renewable energy across the system. You're familiar with the project location. Here's an overview. Relative to the 125-foot sort of fall radius, as your question here, that's the circle on this graph here. We do meet the city's code requirement with the 25-foot setback, as Pam described. So we are compliant with the code. Oh, should I leave that up for a second?
We can see it. It's just a little smaller down there.
This is a quick overview of the site plan and where the monopole will be located relative to the existing equipment in the substation. The detail here, it is a 120-foot tall monopole with a 5-foot tall lightning rod on the top for an overall height of 125 feet. Relative to the wind design question, this is designed to meet International Building Code standards and an ANSI standard for towers. I do have more information on the structural analysis if you're interested to see that. It is designed for 90 mile per hour sustained winds and a 150 mile per hour gusts of 3 seconds at a time. There are no guy wires required due to the foundation design that we've got here. And the FAA approved these towers with no lighting. I believe they only require lighting for towers above over 200 feet. So with this height, we are not required to light the monopole. PSCO, as you know, as a provider of electricity throughout Colorado, we own and operate over 20,000 miles of electric transmission structures. So we like to think we're very good at building tall things and keeping them standing for a long period of time. This is a picture of a monopole we recently installed at another site back in December. This is over at the Tollgate substation over at 225 and Jewel. We had about 17 projects that we got started on in 2016 and about another 24 that we're working on this year. So we will be installing equipment like this across the metro area to develop this field area network.
Is that monopole also 125 feet?
Yes, it is. We did our feasibility study that we mentioned in our application package that you've seen. This 120-foot height coverage is what we went with for this area. This allows all of our communication devices across the network, from the monopole to monopole within the substations and across all the devices through our electric and gas distribution grids to get coverage throughout this area. Had we done a shorter pole, we would have had less coverage, and we probably would have needed taller towers in other locations, or potentially more towers. We often get questions about why we choose to locate the monopole in certain areas of the substation. This is a better graphic showing all of the various components inside the substation. To the naked eye, it might look like plain ground, but we do have quite a lot of infrastructure buried just under the surface. We have a grounding grid, a number of feeders and distribution wires, fiber optic cables, and so this location that's in that squiggly line kind of in the upper right corner is the ideal location for the monopole at this site.
What offsets do you have for like your existing power lines? Do you have any internal offsets that you go to when you're planning these monopoles?
We do. All of these projects go through an engineering review with our substation design engineers and our transmission line engineers, and we basically look at locations in the site where we can be more or less the farthest away from the existing equipment. We also have plans for expansion at many sites, not necessarily this particular substation, but we also take into account where we expect to expand equipment in the future and make sure the monopole doesn't interfere with those plans to add additional equipment. This is a photo simulation. This is the existing view from this location. You can see the white arrow shows this is from sort of the southeast corner of the area.
Excuse me just one sec. That tower that's in the background there, do you know approximately how tall that tower is?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do have that information
That
here.
northwest corner? 87.
Oh, they're right here.
80.
Because they're looking this way.
88. We did include that in our application package. I can double check in just a second. But that would be 88 feet. And so this photo simulation goes from the existing, and this is what the new monopole would look like at 125 feet. So it is taller than the existing structures. Here's a view from another angle from across the major street there. Just to give you another sense for how it compares to what's there today. And that was all the information I had to present, but I'm happy to take any questions. And I do have our structural design report. I believe you asked if this was just done for the monopole itself or for the monopole with the antenna array installed. Right. And it was, in fact, done with the antenna array installed on top. So it covers the complete package you're seeing there.
So that's the 90 mile an hour and the 125 gust.
150 gust, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And just to clarify, I mean, this would require a building permit, right?
Correct.
Actually, we have a letter from the city attorney, or on behalf of the city attorney, saying that no building permit was required. Yeah, electric equipment is usually not covered by the International Building Code.
Okay.
So something like this is not covered by that. There are ANSI standards that apply to telecom equipment like this. That's mentioned in here. ANSI/TIA-222-G is the particular standard we use here in that wind loading analysis.
Okay.
Ms. Sinis is correct, and it is part of the applicant's, one of the exhibits that he has is the attorney letter. In most cases, monopoles do need building permits. However, Mr. Feldman had submitted a letter for you.
The frequency range on your antennas and communications, has that been, I guess, deconflicted with our own Littleton police and fire department and other?
Yeah, we're operating this private network on a band that's approved and licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. So that covers when we're operating within that frequency band, we don't interfere with other equipment.
What are the requirements for marking a tower like that for signals or something along those lines, lights on the top? And
The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, does not require lighting at this height. My understanding is they typically require lighting for poles that are over 200 feet. So we are below that threshold. FAA has approved this project with no markings.
you know when that substation was established at that location? Just
I don't off the top of my head, but I bet we included that in our application. The Inglewood substation's been in service from the 1950s.
thank you.
If the monopole were to fall on the substation, however unlikely that is, I mean, what would the level of damage be? Would it be catastrophic or, you know?
That's hard for me to say. I think it is highly unlikely. It would probably cause some outages if it did happen to fall on substation equipment.
Have there been any occurrences of that? Has one of these ever toppled over?
No, not to my knowledge.
Other questions for the applicant?
Why in your analysis were only the 50-foot and the 120-foot tower considered? I see there's one, you'd had analysis for 75 and 100-foot towers?
We did an analysis, our feasibility study looked at a number of heights at different locations. Would you want to address that? Do you know the answer? I have one of my project engineers with us who is with Council Rock, one of our engineering consulting firms on this project, and he could address that.
Oh, hello, my name is Edwin. I'm with Council Rock. Well, the reason why we like the monopole at the most high altitude is because having more coverage, and as Susan mentioned it before, that will reduce the number of antenna and monopoles that we will require. And that's why we would like the maximum height, and we only include 3 different heights, if I'm correct, just to show how will be the impact of selecting the highest altitude or lower altitudes.
Okay. Could you just please state your first and your last name? Just
Oh,
for
my
the
name
record?
is Edwin, Edwin Ortiz.
Ortiz. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I understand that you probably picked the highest elevation on the site. Okay, would there have been a more a concern with regard to, say, going to another corner of the site at a different elevation that would have maybe caused the length of the monopole to be more of a problem, or the siting of your coverage for the communications to have been changed by moving it, say, to the northwest corner rather than on the east side?
Well, I believe that was taken into consideration by the substation engineers, and that's why they picked up that location.
Just to add to that, if I go back to the general arrangement layout of the substation, the site we chose in kind of the upper right corner with the squiggly lines around it is the area that had the least interference with our existing equipment in the substation. And the height at this location is basically because of the surrounding topography and other tall structures in the area.
Is there any possibility of building these type of antennas on top of the existing, say, transmission towers?
We did look at using our existing infrastructure. There are some safety concerns with mounting these fan antenna above a live wire on a high voltage transmission line. For safety reasons, we do not mount any equipment above our existing transmission wires. And the height that we would use if we were on an existing transmission structure below the live wires would not be tall enough to reach the coverage we've been talking about. We do have a number of locations that we've installed that are not in substations, that are on existing equipment, on existing telecom towers, or on existing transmission structures that are tall enough that we can be below the energized lines. But in this case, that wasn't possible.
And as I understand, this is one component of a larger effort to improve the power grid. I'm just curious how these changes will affect, say, customer pricing.
That's a great question. All of our investments are always reviewed by the Public Utilities Commission. So we'll be getting a thorough overview for all of the add-ons to this system as we go forward with those plans.
Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think now we can open up to public comment if there's anybody signed up to speak. So it appears there's not. So we'll close this portion of the public hearing. Thank you very much. And open it up to discussion amongst the board. I think from my point of view here, we're granting a variance to height. I think it's a benefit to all of us in the area. And being that it's got a small footprint, it's in an industrial area already. Obviously, by their layout that they have there, there's quite a few things going on underground that we can't see. And I would imagine the footing is pretty substantial for it. It does look like it's set back a couple feet more than the required code setback. Again, if it came over, that would be bad, but I think it's pretty low profile and seems to be the way of more and more of these towers these days. So I think I can support this application for this variance.
I agree. That coupled with the fact that there's no public objections from anybody coming forward on either objections or approvals from either direction. And that substation sits down across on the east side of Windermere. It's higher over there, so that substation is kind of in a lower side on the west side of Windermere, which may be to its benefit.
I also suppose that with its installation where it's at, there should be a pretty substantial maintenance, periodic maintenance review of this, because with that being as part of the substation, you're going to get a lot of cathodic movement and and possible corrosion of something in there. And I'm assuming that the utilities have got a maintenance program for that.
Any more discussion? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve case number VAR 17-0001, request for variance at 4929 South Windermere Street, be approved, but the request does meet all the criteria of section 10-11-1B of the Littleton City Code that are required to exist for the board to grant approval. Approval of this application is based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the requested variance would not allow any use other than the current permitted use. Number 2, that the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or zone in which the property is located, or substantially or permanently impair the allowed use of the development of adjacent property. Number 3, that the variance is a minimum that will afford relief and is the least possible modification to the provision in question. Number 4, that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare. And number 5, that the hardship, if anything, under which the variance is sought was not created by the owner, occupant, or agent of the owner of the property in question, nor was it suffered as a result of the violation of any provision of this code.
Do we have a second?
Second.
No vote.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
All right. Congratulations. Moving on, I don't believe there are any further comments or reports by staff. So that being said, we'll close this hearing. Thank you very much.